Hello everyone, Chris Adams here, and this topic today is 3 stages of personal growth. Could be 3 stages, maybe stages isn't the right word, but there are definitely 3 components of growth that I think are important for leaders, right? And the thing for me is, right, I talk a lot about leadership, I talk a lot about culture, because leadership, culture starts from leadership. Leadership is all about you, right? Leadership starts from the top down. And not to get into a lot of it, check some of my other videos, but for me, everyone I believe is a leader of one, right? You are responsible for you. And I think if we spend a lot more time helping ourselves through personal growth, right? I think personal growth, personal development, I think are important pieces of it, but it's kind of been commercialized, and there's a lot of hyperbole around it, and it kind of gets glossed over, but it's really, really important. And so I just kind of wanted to work through some of these. Now, here's the deal. This is how it started, and then I've got a bunch of other notes here to make sure that I don't miss anything, because for me, as I journal, as part of my growth and my personal development, I come up with these topics and I write them down, and then as I'm writing them and before I get to shoot this video, I've already got a bunch of changes. So you just have to bear with me. So let's get to it. So the 3 stages really I think are important, and they're kind of in this order. Number 1, great leaders are incredible followers. Right, and I think the component of being a great follower is the component of learning, right? I think we have to be perpetual learners, right? And one of the things that we have from an engineering standpoint, and I heard this, when a developer is developing code, right, or a programmer, there's this saying, garbage in is garbage out, okay? And I want you to think about that in the context of what we're putting into our brains, right? What we are putting into our minds. The stuff that we watch on TV, the stuff that we watch on social media, the stuff that we watch on the news, the music that we listen to, right? That is part of what you're taking in that is shaping your mindset, okay? The thing with mindset is, right, and this is another one of these terms, and this is what drives me nuts. Mindset is very, very powerful, but it's one of those hyperbole words. It's cliche, right? Mindset, you need to look at it in 3 components, three things. Number 1, it has to be in alignment with the stuff that you're thinking, okay? Has to be in alignment with the stuff that you say and the stuff that you write. That has to be in alignment with the way that you act, okay? If those 3 things are not in alignment, you are going to be in constant conflict, okay? The way you show up at home, the way you show up at work, the way you show up at church, the way you show up for your friends, all needs to be in alignment. And I think we all know people who show up differently at work than they show up at home. You know what I mean? And that's not being true. That's not being authentic. There's something that's breaking there. So the thing for me is garbage in is garbage out. So what are the things that we're putting into our brains? In a state of learning. Are you listening to podcasts? What podcasts are you listening to? What books are you reading? One of the great things that I love to ask people is, kind of even when they're interviewing here for us at SMATech, is what was the last book you read? Right? How long ago was that book that you read? What podcasts, right? And what I'm trying to get is, are you a perpetual learner, right? Because learners are good potential leaders, right? And I'm not saying from a following standpoint, but are you leading yourself, right? So that's really important. I think listening is a really powerful part of learning. Are we listening and asking questions and talking coming from a place of persuasion or influence, And I think sometimes we get into a lot of conversations where we're listening, but we're getting answers not from good questions. I don't even know if that made any sense. But are we talking, right, to teach people, or are we trying to influence people, right? Are we trying to persuade them? How many conversations do we have of persuasion, right? Think about politics. Think about religion, right? I'm trying to convince you that my way is right, and I don't think that's the case. We need to be asking better questions so we can be more apathetic, you know what I mean? Or empathetic. It's one of those things where people will listen to the news and they'll regurgitate this headline, right? But the thing is that for me is, okay, I understand what you're saying, but tell me more about that. Why is it that you feel that way? What is it that we need to be talking about? Because I want to understand, is that just really a talking point that you're regurgitating, or is that what you truly feel? So I think learning is number one, right? And what you garbage in and garbage out. You have to be in alignment. Like I said, what you think, what you say, and what you write has to be in alignment with the way that you act. All right, so number two is kind of this act. It's the doing. Are we getting stuff done? I know a lot of people who are perpetual learners that read a lot of personal development, a lot of self-help, a lot of leadership books. But the thing about it is that learning is the one part, but you have to take what you learn, you have to put it into action, okay? Learning has very little risk. Taking what you learn and actually going out and being vulnerable creates risk, because it creates the component of failure, right? And I think we could look at failure in a couple of different ways, but is it really failure? Is it really a loss? I don't think so. It's really just, learning. So I think taking what you learn and putting it into action, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So what is it that you learned on the podcast, right? What is it that you learned from the book that you read? I do a lot of reading, and I have my favorite books. I'm always working through this top 10, and I can tell a good book because, number one, I'm going to read it again. Number two, the notes that I take into it. And one of the things that I've done is, for me as the leader of one, is how am I taking those things and am I putting them into my life to make me the best version of myself? And it absolutely does. It is risky, right? Because, one of the things, we could implement something and it could fail. But the thing about it is, we sit down, we evaluate it, we ask the three questions: what worked, what didn't work, what we can do to be better. It's the constant feedback loop. I think another thing about action that's really important is teaching. Who are you teaching, right? If it's one thing to learn, right, and if you're not going to try to implement what you learn, who are you helping? You're definitely not helping yourself. But the other thing is, who are you teaching to help them, right? That's kind of the servant side of what we need to be doing. And I think that's a really powerful tool. What are we doing to teach our kids, right? What are we doing to teach our employees? What are we doing to help teach our friends? And it's not so much teaching them so they do what you think that they need to be doing. It's teaching them so they can be empowered, not influenced, not inspired, or not motivated. It's just taking what you have and passing it along, right? It's paying it forward. That's what the second component of action is. Number three, I think this is part of one of the hardest things to get through. I think this creates some sort of vulnerability, but it also creates the authenticity and for me, this is personally probably what's changed the most for me in the last 3 years, as I've really started to be the best version of what Chris Adams can be, is for me, I've always liked to learn. whether that was, at a sports camp, whether that was at a marketing seminar, whether that was, reading a good book. And I didn't really have a problem with action, right? I mean, the nature of what I do, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I love to go out and try new things. But the most important part of that isn't so much what we get done, right? It's not about what we put on our to-do list that we get to check off. It's not the revenue goal. It's not the kind of the transactions. I talk a lot about the difference between transactions and relationships. It's not so much the transaction or the action that becomes important. It's absolutely positively who we get to be when we're completing those actions. And you can still be a great manager and hold people accountable, and still be a kind person, a compassionate person, a loving person. You can have all of those same conversations with those. It's important to understand that who we get to be, why we're doing those things, is really, really important. And I think that if you look at all three of those components, and here's the thing, right? Those are all ever flowing. You know what I mean? And I think once you become aware of those, for me, it helps me be better. I don't look to be perfect. I just kind of look through these three things and what is it that I'm learning? What is it that I'm doing? What is it that I'm teaching? And then who am I? Who is Chris Adams? Who is the person that I get to be when I'm doing that? I can still hold people accountable. I can still, get mad. It's not getting mad. It's not the anger that's the problem. It's how you manage that anger. Are we being critical? In fact, you know what? That's the topic for the next one. I got to write down. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but one of the things that we talk about here is the difference between responding and reacting. But there's some things. I think they're the 4 C's. I think there may be 5. Depends on who you talk to, but the 4 critical 4 C's that you don't want to be while you're acting and doing. So anyway, so that's it. 3 stages of personal growth, 3 parts, I don't care what you call it, but these 3 things need to be, you need to be aware of. And for me, that's what it is. What are we learning? What are we teaching? What are we teaching our kids? What are we teaching our friends? What are we teaching our employees? So that's what it is. This will be part of our leadership and our culture seminar. Culture starts with you, right? You are the leader of one, and it's your responsibility to be the best version of what you can be for everyone around you. So anyway, that's all I got today, and look forward to the next video for next week. Thanks.